Your sales software shouldn't be a bummer. When you step inside your CRM, you should feel equipped to do your best work, like you're sitting in the pilot seat with easy-to-use and powerful controls. And that's the magic of HubSpot Sales Hub. The new Sales Hub is designed to help you win quarter over quarter and year over year. With an intuitive prospecting workspace and AI-powered tools that reduce your workload, managing leads is a lot less like manual labor. And closing deals? It's no big deal at all. Wrangle your day-to-day tasks on a seamless platform that makes navigating contacts, calls, and analytics easy. Get AI-powered tools like ChatSpot that are tailor-made to be personal assistants for your CRM. Just prompt it to pull up a contact, sum up last week's sales, or research your competitors. By automating steps across the sales pipeline, teams can take back their time and spend it on more impactful tasks like connecting with customers. Close more deals and get on track for your best Q1 yet. Learn about HubSpot Sales Hub at hubspot.com/sales.
Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, January 17th. I'm John Weigell here with Mark Dent, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Today, we're asking why some super wealthy people are straight up giving away their money. Specifically, Austrian heiress Marlene Engelhorn and the $27.4 million she gave away in protest. But for the billionaires outside of the giving mindset, how can countries move to tax them fairly? We'll get to that and much more, but first, let's give you the hits and headlines today across business and tech. First up, Uber is officially shutting down Drizly, the alcohol delivery service it purchased in 2021 for $1.1 billion. Uber said it will instead double down on its Uber Eats strategy, which, yes, you can order alcohol on, so enjoy the convenience of high noon delivery, everybody. Mark, what do you think about this Drizly shutdown and its short reign?
Well, I know we're going to be talking about people giving away a lot of money, but Uber gave away an awful lot of money here to basically just do nothing.
Yeah, boy, did they ever.
Yeah, $1.1 billion. And I don't know, it just kind of seemed always like a weird fit, I thought, for Uber. I know that they have Uber Eats, but, you know, as I recall, Drizly, it was a little bit different because the liquor stores kind of did their own deliveries. It wasn't quite done in the same way that the rest of Uber Eats was. Right. And it just never really seemed to mesh. I guess that's the reason why you end up kind of giving up on a $1 billion acquisition after just, a few years.
Yeah, it is fascinating that they bought it in 2021. And to me, at least the height of Drizly when it came out, I think maybe 2016, 2017 is when I remember it being used the most. And 2021 seems even further after its descent. Maybe they decided to do a pandemic buy or something and grab onto that. But I think the integration was right there with Uber Eats the whole time. You could just sell alcohol on Uber Eats. So maybe they just needed the permits or something like that.
I guess, hey, you know what? People who want alcohol delivered to them can still get it. So I guess society wins a little bit, at least.
Yeah. So it's a win for America all around. Speaking of wins for America, Burger King's owner, Restaurant Brands International, is buying the fast food chain's largest U.S. franchisee for about $1 billion. The purchase of Carroll's Restaurant Group, which operates over 1,000 Burger King locations, is part of the company's $400 million plan to revive business because I guess chicken fries were not enough to do that for them. Next, Elon Musk is asking Tesla's board for about $82 billion of company shares, which will raise his stake in the company from 13% to a whopping 25%. Musk said that he won't help Tesla become a leader in AI and robotics unless he has more voting control and would build products elsewhere if he didn't have it. So, crazy. Now, some positive and negatives for Apple. For the first time, Apple shipped more smartphones in 2023 than Samsung did. Apple shipped 234.6 million iPhones, while Samsung shipped 226.6 million devices, per an analysis from Canalys. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of phones to throw away when iPhone 16 comes out next year. Now, going into the negative for Apple, it removed blood oxygen testing tech from some watches to avoid a U.S. ban, and the Supreme Court refused an appeal against a ruling that will allow developers to use alternate purchasing options and avoid App Store fees. So, some ups and downs for Apple. Now, on to our main story. Our top story today centers around inheritance with a dash of fair taxation talk, starting with Austrian heiress Marlene Engelhorn and a huge amount of money she gave away for a specific purpose. What's the story here, Mark?
Yeah, so Marlene Engelhorn is a 31-year-old who lives in Austria, and she is a descendant of Friedrich Engelhorn, who was the founder of this pharmaceutical company, BASF. And as such, she inherited around $27 million when her grandmother died a little bit over a year ago.
Wow.
And she wasn't really certain how to feel about it. She felt like she came into all this money and hadn't really done anything to earn it, basically.
Wow. I wish more people felt that way.
Yeah, I think that's why it's become this huge story, because very few people do. And so what Marlene Engelhorn has done is formed this kind of council that's going to help her decide how to redistribute all this money. Mm-hmm. And so what happened with this council is that 10,000 Austrian citizens were selected to apply to be part of this council, and 50 of them are going to end up being chosen. And then that council is going to decide how to share that $27 million.
Wow. And they're going to decide what organizations they send it to, charity-wise and such, I'm guessing.
That is exactly right. And what the plan is that this group is hopefully going to just kind of come up with ways to use that money in ways that they believe will kind of help society as a whole. That's their kind of goal with this. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason why she is doing this is because Austria doesn't have an inheritance tax. Oh. Austria hasn't had one since 2008. And in the US, we don't have an inheritance tax either, but we do have an estate tax. And so that's something that taxes basically only the ultra wealthy. So if your estate is valued at $13 million or more, mm-hmm. then you owe tax on the amount over $13 million. Wow. When you pass away, then your estate gets taxed. For instance, if you are worth $14 million, then you'd be taxed on several $100,000 at like a 40% rate. And obviously, there's been a lot of controversy over whether this estate tax is not nearly strict enough. There was even in Joe Biden's Build Back Better bill that passed in the last couple of years, there was originally going to be a stipulation in there that brought that threshold down much lower than $13 million. But it ended up being cut before that law got passed.
So, I mean, all of this news coming out from Marlene and all of the work that she's doing to kind of put money back into her economy to help people, and also to kind of put money into an organization to help tax billionaires fairly in a few German-speaking countries. What does this mean for the United States and countries like us here?
Well, I think it's going to probably bring a lot more attention to kind of some of the things I was just saying. We do have an estate tax, a federal estate tax here in the US, but it's only for really, truly high earners. And a lot of people think it should be at least a little bit lower than what it is. And then I think the other thing that's going on is that right now we're on the cusp of / experiencing what the New York Times has referred to as the greatest wealth transfer in history. Oh. And so what that means is that by 2045 or so, there's going to be a lot of baby boomers who are aging out and dying, and they're going to pass along their assets. And the amount that they're going to pass on is, again, estimated by the New York Times to be around $84 trillion. Truly the largest wealth transfer in human history. And much of this money, or basically most of it, I should say, is going to go to the top 10% income earners. It's going to come from the top 10% to the top 10%. Mm-hmm. And we already have a society that's fairly unequal. And it's expected that this wealth transfer is only going to kind of further exacerbate that.
Wow. That is crazy to think that the wealth gap here could even get worse, because I do see a statistic here as well that says the bottom 50% of households will only give or receive about 8% of that $84 trillion. I mean, that's just a direct transference from one generation to the other, it sounds like, to the rich to the rich.
Right, exactly. And that's how it's kind of always happened in the past. And it's just that there's so much more money on the line now because, America got so much wealthier between 1950, 1960 onward, with properties going up, et cetera. So I think when you see something like from Marlene there in Austria, it's really kind of bucking the trend. Not that there aren't other people who have done it. We have some examples like the founder of Patagonia. He gave away his company, and it's $100 million a year in profits are being used to fight climate change. Wow. Mackenzie Scott, who was once married to Jeff Bezos, has donated more than $16 billion to philanthropy since 2019. So, we are seeing some moves be made that aren't just this quick transfer of wealth from generation to generation that Marlene Engelhorn is protesting against.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the years to come before 2045, I guess we can all hope that behavior continues in the wealthier classes.
Right, exactly. And, Marlene Engelhorn is kind of getting that story out there at the least.
Yeah, trailblazer. All right, and that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in to the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clarke. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, everybody. I've been listening to this podcast lately. It's fantastic. It's called DTC Pod, hosted by Ramon Barrios and Blaine Bolas. It's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, which is the audio destination for business professionals. DTC Pod is a podcast about all things direct to consumer, as it says in the title. Ramon and Blaine cover everything from starting, growing, and optimizing e-commerce stores and DTC or D2C brands. They have a lot of great conversations with founders, marketers, platforms, creators, and marketing and growth agencies to cover all these topics like brand building, social media, influencer marketing, website conversion, paid media, Facebook ads, consumer trends, email marketing, and much, much more, if you could even believe it. If you're interested in stories behind your favorite consumer brands, this podcast is tailor-made for you. Just the other day, I was listening to an episode and their guest was Mikey Taylor. Mikey started as a professional skateboarder and flipped his life into becoming a huge entrepreneur dealing in real estate, owning his own brewing company, and also owning a skateboard company called Sovereign Skateboards. This guy really flipped his life into something insane, and it's so cool to listen to how he did it every single step of the way. Definitely go check that episode out. It's really, really inspiring. And you can listen to DTC Pod wherever you get your podcasts.